All right, so today we are going to talk about two specific types of experimental designs. One is called blocking, and the other is called matched pair. These are two different types of designs that you can use to help you control lurking variables. Okay? So the first one that we're going to talk about is blocking. So what happens is blocking basically helps you factor out your lurking variables before they can become confounded in the results of the experiment. So a block is simply a group of experimental units that you know that are similar in some way, shape, or form that are expected to affect the results or the response to the treatment. So what we then do is we're going to take that known block and separate them before we do the randomization. So we have this term that's called a randomized block design. So basically what will happen is we will then randomly assign the experimental units or the subjects to the treatments after we perform the blocking. So what we'll actually do is in an experiment, we'll actually block first and then do the random assignment. So to give you an example of this, it says an experiment that incorporates blocking. Let's take a look at this one. Here it says men and women respond differently to advertising. Researchers would like to design an experiment to compare the effectiveness of 3 advertisements for the same product. Outline a randomized block design using 300 volunteers, 180 men and 120 women as your subjects. Describe how you'd carry out the random assignment required by your design. So, what happens in a block design is we're still going to start here with our 300 subjects. But instead of doing random assignment right away, we actually perform a block. The block in here happens to be gender. Okay? So what's going to happen here is we're going to have block 1, where we're going to have the 180 men. And down here, we're going to have the 120 women.
Would that be block 2?
That would be block 2. Yep. So we're going to block by gender. So because earlier in the problem it actually says, hey, men and women respond differently. So since we know that they can respond differently, let's separate the 2 groups and do, in essence, 2 separate experiments, one for the men and one for the women, and look at how men respond to it and how women respond to it. Because if we know that men tend to respond better to, say, add 2, and women tend to respond better to add 1, then as a company we can start to target men and women by placing those ads in areas that, or shows that men tend to watch more often and women tend to watch more often. So companies do that quite a bit. If you ever want to see, watch sporting events, watch the World Series, see what things are advertised during them. You might see a lot of, products that are designed specifically for men. So for women, they still today, in the daytime, if you're at home on a day of school off, just watch a soap opera. A lot of the products will then be a little bit still towards women because there's still the philosophy that in families, more women stay home than men. However, that's been changing quite a bit over time. But they still have the soap operas nonetheless during the daytime. Alright, so once you've done the blocking, then we need to do the random assignment. So up here, we have 3 advertisements. So what I have to do is take the men and do a random assignment to one of 3 groups. So group 1 have 60 men. Group 2 have 60 men. And group 3 also has 60 men. So I'm breaking up the 180 into the 3 groups. Then I give each group a treatment. So treatment number 1 might be add number 1. Treatment 2, would be add number 2. I put number 2. And then treatment number 3 is add number 3. So within the men, sorry, there's my voice going. We want to compare the effectiveness of the ads. So that we can see, all right, which one of these ads should we run during shows that men tend to watch more often. We do the same type of setup for women. I'm sorry? Oh, thought you had a question for me. I ran out of room, so compare the effective, oh, I forgot an S, effectiveness of the ads. So random assignment again. So now when we do the groups of women, group 1, it's only going to be 40. In each group. And again, go ahead and write out all the treatments. So treatment number 1, which is add 1. Treatment is add number 2. And treatment number 3 is add number 3. So again, we will compare the effectiveness of the ads.
So, it's really like block off the
Well, like for instance in this question, it said specifically the word block. It said randomized block design. So I know I got a block. Now the question becomes, what do I need to block by? So I look back at, did they give me anything up here that said what I should block by? The first sentence said, men and women respond differently. Well, if men and women are responding differently, a block, you want to block by where groups are actually going to respond differently. So in this problem, they're specifically telling you you should be blocking by men and women. Now, if they set up here, something older and younger people, or people over the age of 40 versus people under the age of 40 respond differently to
So
ads.
you'll kind of know, because they'll give you two kind of age groups or kind of.
They lead you into what you should
yeah.
block
So I
by.
didn't know if they like kind of just left it up to us to figure out if it was a blocker guy or not. They kind of lead you to it.
No, they'll lead you, and I will. I will put it in the problem where, somewhere in there describing, hey, men and women. It might be something, to the extent, different races respond differently to a treatment. Right? One would be pretty good is teachers and students. Alright, now, it does ask you to describe the random assignment. So how would you randomly assign these 180 men and 120 women, okay, to your groups? So down below I talked about using the random number table. So you don't actually have to do that, but it just asks you up here. Well, you would have to write this part of it. It just says describe how you would carry it out. You don't have to carry it out unless I said specifically.
So that's all you would have to do for this?
You have to do two things here. You have to outline it, which we did.
Oh, no.
We do have to describe. What I wouldn't ask you, it doesn't say to carry it out. I might say, okay, describe your situation, okay? I probably wouldn't ask you to do it in this great in detail, okay? Or I wouldn't have like two groups, but I might have like this top one and say, tell me the first two subjects or three subjects that go into group one. I wouldn't make you do them all because that would take you the entire block and then some. No pun intended with a block. But a block. But, so again, here I'm using the random number table. It's not the only way, okay? But if you see a problem that has random numbers on it, or part of the random number table with it, use the random number table in your description. So here I'm just talking about, I'm going to assign each woman a 3-digit number from 001 to 120. Do the same thing, okay, for men, except I'm going to use the digits 001 and through 180. So I'll pick 40 unique numbers for add 1, for 40 for add 2, and 40, or the remaining 40 numbers get assigned to add 3. That's for the women. Notice how I just say do the same process for men, but choose 60 unique numbers. That way I don't have to write the whole process over for the men. So actually that's all you would have to write. That last sentence you wouldn't have to. I'll cover that up. Because all I asked for you to do was to do the random assignment. give you another minute to try to finish up. Once you have, you want to turn to the back page. That way it gives me an idea. I know that you're done. As those of you who are finishing up too, just a reminder up here for Monday, Chapter 3 retake or just doing the test, because I know there's a couple of you that still have to make it up. Monday's the deadline, so you gotta get done by this coming Monday. Homework check for Chapter 4 CFU and bookwork, I'm gonna do that on Monday. Your test is Tuesday for Chapter 4.
Is it one retake per quarter or semester?
Per term, so per quarter. So when we start the next, there's one retake for chapters 1 to 4, and one retake for chapters 5 to 8. And then I always say there's no carryovers either way. So you can't say, oh, I didn't use my retake term 1, can I use term 2? All right, let's continue on to the next page here, or the next one here. Just want to make sure it's the correct page. All right, so the second example dealing with blocking here says a cell phone company is considering 2 different types of keyboard designs, A and B, for its new line of smartphones. Researchers would like to conduct an experiment using subjects who are frequent texters and subjects who are not frequent texters. The subjects will be asked to text several different messages in 5 minutes. The response variable will be the number of correctly typed words. So in question 8 it says, explain why a randomized block design might be preferable to a completely randomized design for this experiment. Why would you not just completely randomize, just take all the people that you have in your experiment and just randomize them? What could potentially happen? Okay, so you don't know who's good at texting and who's not so good at texting. Would people who are good at texting versus not good at texting, okay, would they have different responses to the number of words they type in correctly? Yeah, very much so. So the randomized block design, okay, is going to help you separate the 2 groups so that those results aren't confounded or mixed in with your results. Okay. So the first part here is talking about their texting abilities. Talking about how, since people have various texting abilities, in the completely randomized design, since you have a lot of different texting abilities, that's going to basically cause more variability, and it's going to be very difficult for you to potentially determine which keyboard is actually better. Your randomized block design is going to separate the experienced texters and the novice texters. That's going to help you reduce that variability and make it easier to see if there's an actual difference in the 2 keyboards. Is the, keyboard A actually better for the experienced typers and the novice typers? Or is one good for the experienced versus the novice? Samsung and Apple are always experimenting and looking at, different designs. In part, they want to make their product better. In part, they always want to put out a new product so that you want to buy the new product. Apple tends to come out, or Samsung too, they both tend to come out with new phones about once every 1 to 2 years? I think I mentioned in here earlier, I remember watching Apple stock and reading different articles about what they were doing, and I remember they actually bought out a company that helped them put the technology for your thumbprint. So I actually knew that that was coming out on, I think those started to come out on the 5s. That technology. So
What do you have with the 6?
I now have the 6. I didn't have the 6 until about a month ago. So I had the 4 before that.
Didn't they sell that technology
I haven't been reading lately what Apple's been doing since I don't own the stock anymore. But I wouldn't be surprised if they at least either sold it or at least sold the rights so that it could be used. I can see them easily selling the rights because that's going to help them make more money. They'll make some sort of royalty or commission off it. So you got Apple, Samsung. Is Android a different phone maker, or is that
Yeah, they're owned by Google.
they're owned by Google? That's what I thought. Android was different. I've just always been an Apple product since I was a little kid. Back in the days when I was a little kid and I had the Apple IIe computer with the disk drive. Do they even make computers with disk drives anymore? Occasionally they'll have a CD drive, won't they? Or CD-ROM so that you can still play DVDs sometimes on them. But even those, like the MacBook Airs, are starting to go away from those too. I still have a MacBook Pro, so I still have the CD, DVD. All right, so I'm guessing we're back. We got one back from the field trip. All right, so let's take a look at the second part. So part B says outline a randomized block experiment using 100 frequent texters and 200 novice texters. Okay. So I crossed out the describe, the random assignment. I figured that was a little bit too redundant. So just to do another outline. So we start off with 300 subjects. So then we're gonna block by the frequent texters, which we have 200, and then the novice. $100.
100
Oh, did I flip them?
Yeah.
Ah, thank you for catching that. So let me change that up. Good catch. Just check and see if you are listening. Otherwise known as teacher made a mistake. I make them often. So now we want to assign random assignment. So random assignment. We have group 1, which will put 50, and group 2 will have 50. Then we'll have treatment number 1, which might be keyboard A. And treatment 2. Keyboard B. So then we want to actually compare, I think it was what, number of mistakes in 5 minutes? Or the response variable would be the number of correctly typed words in 5 minutes, right? Number of correct words in 5 minutes. Because it's good to have the frequent texters all in one group, because if they're frequent, they're probably pretty fast texting. I know my stepson Danny, he can just go to like 90 miles an hour at texting. My wife, on the other hand, very deliberate and slow. I would put myself somewhere in between. I still have like the auto word correct still on, which is still kind of annoying, so I am trying to get used to, do I want that on or not? If I hate it, I'll go fast. Then I'll look back and like change 3 of my words because I misspelled something, like, and it totally changes like the meaning. All right, continuing on with novice, we just basically are doing the same thing. Random assignment. So group 1 will be 100, and group 2, 100. So treatment 1, keyboard A. Treatment 2, keyboard B. And then again, we want to compare number of correct words in 5 minutes.
So it makes it like so easy. It's like yeah.
Yeah, should put up videos on
Anyone still making sure they're getting the notes? All right, let's go to match pair. Last one. Yay! I know you're excited. All right, a match pair design is basically a special case of a block design where instead of having like 100 subjects and 100 subjects, you're matching up either subjects that are that have the exact or very close similar characteristics, or you have one subject do both of the treatments. Right? So to give you an example of this, okay, for instance, say I want to compare, I'm a company that designs a new mosquito spray that keeps away the mosquitoes. Okay? And I have my old product and I want to see, does the new formula I put together, is it better? One of the things I could do is do what's called a match pairs design, where each subject is going to get both treatments. So what I could do is have the subject be randomly assigned to spray one of the treatments on their left arm and the other treatment on their right arm. Then I could have them put their arms, both arms at the same time, into a container that has the same number of mosquitoes in it, and have them put their arms in it for 1 minute. And then, after they're in there for 1 minute, have them pull them out and count how many mosquito bites did they actually get. Yeah. Don't want to volunteer for that? Probably not. But what's happening here, okay, is this last part is what I'm basically describing. A matched pair is just one experimental unit and they receive both treatments. So you have to randomize which treatment they basically get first or second, or which treatment goes where. Like in the mosquito one, which one do they put on the first arm or the second arm? Okay. You could also do it where they have similar experimental units. Okay. So they're similar in some way, shape, or form. So for instance, okay, if I'm trying to test, say a new shampoo, one of the things I could do is try to find two subjects that basically have the same type of hair. Okay? So they might have nice long, blonde curly hair. They're the same age. Okay? If I can find two people that match up that way, I could randomly assign one of them one shampoo and the other shampoo. They can rate the shampoo and they can let us know which one is potentially better. That's a little bit harder to do, okay? But it's basically how the match pair design can work when you're given basically two different subjects or two experimental units. Lots of times you can potentially do it like in agriculture. If you have a plot of land that's really close to each other, they're receiving basically the same amount of sun, okay? Same amount of soil, okay? And the plants are basically the same type. You could put the two plants in the ground and then, give one so much fertilizer and the other less fertilizer, and you can potentially see which one does better on the different amounts of fertilizer. Okay? So, to give you an example here with a match pair design. Here's this example. It says an athletic shoe company believes they have developed a shoe that will help short distance runners lower their times in races. They've recruited 18 runners. Each runner was given a new pair of the athletic shoes. The runners were encouraged to use these shoes and their favorite pair of running shoes equally in practice for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, the runners ran 2 100-meter dashes with 5 hours between the races. Ask you to describe how you'd use a match pair design to set up this experiment. Include a clear statement that describes what makes up a pair and how the random assignment occurs. So in here, we're not going to actually outline a match pair, but basically try to describe what makes up a pair, what's the random assignment, and how am I going to determine how the results will be collected. So if I think about, first of all, what makes up a pair? Am I gonna be comparing two different runners to each other? No. I'm actually gonna be comparing one runner, and they're gonna get both treatments. So each runner is gonna get both pairs of shoes. Okay? So the two treatments in this case are their favorite running shoe and the newly developed running shoe. Each of these treatments is going to be applied to the 18 runners. So then the pair actually consists of the running time for the two treatments from the one single runner. So the pair is the time with the new running shoes compared to the running time of the old shoes. So now, what do we have to randomly assign? We have to randomly assign which shoes used first. So you gotta determine, does the runner run in the new pairs first or their favorite pair first? So you can do that using a random number table. Here I flipped a coin. It said, hey, heads, they run in the new pair, did I say? Yep, nope, they'll use their favorite heads, or their favorite pair. Heads, favorite pair. Tails, they'll use the new pair. So we randomize that so that we can factor out, or at least make sure that we're not, or when they run the race, doesn't determine which one is faster. Because one might think or believe that the first time they run it will probably be faster, they might be fresher. However, they are giving them 5 hours of rest. One of the neat things, this is a little off topic, but I know you're right. One of the neat things that happens in competition swimming, I know I have a couple of my swimmers sitting here right in the middle, and maybe they can attest to it, is at sections, in order to swim the next day, After we have what's called preliminaries and then finals. At preliminaries, your goal is to be in the top 16. If you're in the top 16 swimmers, you get a swim the next day. However, if you finish in a tie for 16th or a tie for 8th place, you actually have to swim off, because the top 8 places qualify for the finals and get medals, and then the top 16 places get a swim again. Right? So if you're tied for 16th, and it's you and another swimmer, what they do is they have a swim off at the end of the swim meet, and they wait 20 minutes before they have the swim off, to be fair to both swimmers, just in case if one of the two swimmers swam in the very last race of the meet. So, Nick, Jake, have you guys ever seen a swim off?
I've not personally seen this
Oh, you guys haven't seen them? They usually happen once in a while. They're quite fun. Because it's what happens is, instead of at a swim meet, it's usually 8 people swimming in the pool at once. Here it's just head to head, and they swim off. So it gets pretty intense. Not only that, but most of the time, they swim even faster than they did in the race before. What's really crazy is, if they tie, they do it again in 20 minutes. I haven't seen that yet. Right? However, what I've actually seen, though, too, is in swimming, is if it's a tie, one of the swimmers can choose not to participate, but then he's saying, I'm choosing not to be the 16th swimmer or the 8th swimmer. They can choose that. They just don't, you don't have to swim it, but then you're giving it up. Alright, so the last thing again we want to do here is then just basically compare the difference in the running times between the two pairs of shoes for the 18 runners to see if an actual difference occurs. Match pairs designs definitely get used in the business world. Company that I can probably think does it quite a bit is either like Duracell or Energizer, when they're trying to develop a new type of battery. What they'll do is they'll take their old batteries and compare their new batteries in a toy. So they'll randomly assign which battery goes first and which battery goes second. So they'll put it in a toy and let it run constantly and see how long the toy runs for, or how long the flashlight gives off light. And then they'll test to see, well, is our new batteries overall lasting longer? All right. Any questions with 4.7? I'll leave this up here. I'm going to stop the video for a second. We're going to leave this up here.